Hello, this is Dr. Robo Coach with a review of RoboDraft, which is about equivalent to FantasyPros Trade Assistant, which I reviewed a couple days ago. And I was pretty hard on the Trade Assistant, although I think it is the best tool out there in terms of being a fantasy football draft assistant. Um, and so This is the fantasy football equivalent, FantasyFootballDraft.com equivalent of the trade assistant. So let's just get into it first, and I'll just show you generally how it works. This is the cheat sheet, which I also reviewed. What goes into Robo Draft is essentially the cheat sheet values, and I discuss what you want from the cheat sheet values. You can review that. But the key things were customizability, VBD. Those are two key things. Tiers were also very important. So let's click the go to RoboDraft and just get into it. I'm going to resume where I left off. So this is the beginning of the draft. And so you can see here, the draft hasn't begun. Down below is the draft board. And so as I select players, they'll appear down here. I have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15th pick, 16th pick in this 18 team draft. And so this is telling me that I should take Juju Smith-Schuster with the 17th pick. And it's really that simple. So players would start flying off the board like so. Um, I click Saquon, he appears down here, that team, and then McCaffrey. This list on the left is just the player's current ADP, and so they're shown here just so you can quickly add them to the draft. Then it just sort of snakes around in the same way snake draft does. And so when it gets to me, if Juju Smith-Schuster is still there, then I can just click on him per the suggestion, or while this is taking place, or maybe before, I can say, look, I don't want Juju. I'm going to nuke him, and I want to see when I nuke him, he ends up in this nuke list, which means players that I don't want to consider. And so I click recalculate, and I'll get a different draft pick. I don't really want to nuke. Um, all right, so Julio Jones is there. So his ADP is a 15. So RoboDraft thinks there's a chance that he might drop to the 16th pick where I am. So let's see what happens here. So it just keeps going through and going through until it's my pick. And if I decide that I want to get Juju back in there, I change my mind. I just click on him and I click recalculate, and then he'll probably appear as my target. Now, one of the things that I faulted Trade Assistant with was was really the lack of simulation. Um, so you are getting a simulation here. Robo, it says, has evaluated 1.12 times 10 to the 18th power. That's 18 zeros. Um, what 15 zeros is a quintillion. 18 zeros is, I don't know. That's a lot. So basically that these are all the different ways that the draft could unfold. Um, and RoboCoach has, it's been trained um, with an algorithm that allows it to quickly make a selection in the same way that Chess AI can make a move within the allotted time. So does RoboDraft have that capability. So in any event, that's what you're getting here. It's a full simulation of the entire draft from the 16th slot for me in the 16th slot. So this is telling me it's completely mapped out my draft. RoboDraft thinks that I can get these players. And if for some reason players go earlier or later than they're supposed to, then RoboDraft will on the fly make changes to improve my robo index, and that robo index is based upon that key thing that you want that you're going after, which is VBD, value-based drafting, or sometimes it's basically a fantasy football analytic similar to WAR in baseball, similar to well some other known fantasy football analytics are VORP. So VBD is they're all next level analytics that you want to implement. So that's what the Robo Index is about. You want to acquire as much of a Robo Index as you can. And if you follow this happy path here, and by happy path, I mean the ones that aren't starred. It says down here that there's some players who are starred that are not on the optimal happy path. So you have the option not to pick them up and to say pick up a handcuff in that spot if you wanted to. I think Mel Gordon has a handcuff that you want to pick up. So if he's available here at 7, I might do that. Um, but we shall see. And the ADP changes by day, as do player values. So I don't expect Mel to stay here in the third round very long. So when it comes to draft day, I don't know that he'll be there. But right now, since he's experiencing issues, he's down here. But anyway, there's the happy path. I got one tight end, a wide receiver, two running backs, a defense, another wide receiver, and here's my QB down here and my defense, and that conforms. And I got a kicker that conforms to my league setup. So RoboDraft has thought through all the things that I'm going to need. And that's really how it works. It's that simple. Um, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but it's a step above the sites and that don't provide a simulation of what can happen. In other words, the sites that just give you what to do right now. So as your draft snakes around, you don't see, picks 2 through 13. You just they just tell you to pick up Juju Smith-Schuster when it's your turn. So you're sort of blind. Your turn, you're like, well, okay, but how does that fit into my overall draft strategy? How is that going to give me, the highest possible draft index? Um, so that's, RoboDraft is the only site that does that I've seen. Um, I'm still reviewing other sites. I haven't gone to RotoWire yet. I'll check them out next. But Fantasy Pros, I think, is pretty much the top when it comes to artificial intelligence. And I found the Draft Assistant pretty good, but lacking in its ability to simulate what I've just discussed here. So, and not only does this simulate, but it allows you to say, I don't like that simulation. There's something wrong with it with the nuke button and the recalculate button. So that's a huge step forward for you because it allows you to envision the entire draft and also to respond in real time to changes when players move up and down or if somebody falls to you. So, for example, if Travis Kelce should fall, for example, you might find that when it gets to be your pick, like right now, RoboDraft doesn't think that Travis Kelce is going to be there because where are we? We're we're getting close to this pick. We're getting close. I'm the farm. So 16, 15, 14, 13. So Travis's ADP is 13. So RoboDraft probably thinks there's no way the percentage is 0 that he'll fall. And if he does fall, whether or not he'd be taken over Smith-Schuster depends upon that cheat sheet we just looked at. So mathematically, it might not make sense. So let's go through a couple of guys, and then we'll actually get to my pick. There goes Le'Veon. There goes Joe Mixon. And so now I'm up, I think. And yep, there I am, the farm. And so let's recalculate. And nope, he still thinks Juju Smith-Schuster is the way to go. And that sort of makes sense. I think Juju's going to have a great year. And so I would click him. And then he is now off the board and on my team. And if I click recalculate, RoboDraft is now looking ahead to my second round pick. So he changed his mind though. He thinks now that Julio might fall to me. So let's see what happens. So let's say Julio is supposed to go right now according to his ADP. So let's just say that happens. And then RoboDraft will say, okay, well, I was hoping for Julio, but it didn't happen. So maybe Odell's going to drop to you. And maybe he will. So let's see. Anyway, I think you get the point. So RoboDraft is sort of thinking on his feet and hoping, as the percentages increase for a player to drop as the draft changes, RoboDraft will reevaluate the chances and say, well, this is starting to look like this player has a chance of falling to you, and so I'm going to recalculate. And as also you'll notice as you get through the draft, there's a fewer number of possibilities that happen because, well, obviously things have happened and there are only a limited number of draft picks that are coming up. So as the number of picks reduce, so do the possibilities. So what this doesn't have is I discussed this in the trade assistant and been meaning to program this, but haven't gotten around to it. Is basically this simulation you can see it's going cranking through quite a large number here, and what it doesn't give you is that power slot, and that's really what's key. What determines your success in the season, to a large part, I mean, not completely, because trades and free agent moves are also make a big difference. But to a the draft really determines a huge portion of whether or not you're going to be successful. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. So your success in the draft is pretty much I mean, when you're playing with good players, your success in the draft is dictated by your slot because that's going to determine who's going to fall to you, who you're going to get. And if you're playing against good players, then your things are, players aren't going to fall so far. You're not going to get um, the, just crazy picks that, somebody overlooked. When you're playing against good players, they don't overlook good players. And so your slot will determine who you get. And so that slot, if you simulate over and over and over and over hundreds of thousands of drafts, you will find that there is a certain slot, given the number of teams in your league and given your VBD and um, your league setup. It'll be different for every league, of course. But given all that, you're going to find there's a certain slot that over and over tends to um, win the league or get the highest Robo index. And so I have to fault Robo Draft for not being able to do that, although the numbers are certainly there, and the capability and the ability to simulate that number of drafts is certainly there. I just haven't done it. Um, but yeah, there is a power slot that you can calculate. It'll eventually converge, and you can say, well, what good is that? If I get the number one draft pick, I'm not going to trade up. Yes, do trade up. It's easy to trade up, and just the snake draft does exactly what it's intended. It allows a 16 round, a 16th slot to be just as valuable as a one slot because it snakes around. You get the 16th pick, And then when it snakes back around, I only have to wait 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I get the 20th pick. So the 16th and the 20th versus the first and the 36th in this 18 team. It makes a difference. So um, all those simulations could be done. They're not done. So prior to the draft, in order for you to figure that out, you would have to put yourself in a bunch of different slots, which you can do here. You come in and you can set up your own draft order here. And instead of putting yourself down at 16, you could try yourself at 5 and then, you know, resubmit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and that's pretty much all I'd have to do. And then I click submit, and then I go to the draft room and say, oh, you already got the draft there. Do you want to resume or do you want to delete and start again? And so I say delete and start again. So this is the part where I don't like this so much because it's making you do the thinking. Computers could do the thinking for you. So here's something that's interesting. So now I'm in the fifth slot, and uh, I think I have to back out because things it's cached me at the into the wrong slot, or I filled out that form wrong. Um, but in any event, so if I were at the fifth slot, let's say, and I'd come in here and I'd say, well, let's just do it. Um, I'll fill out the form correctly this time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So instead of making me 15, I'll make myself 5. Oops, what am I doing? 15, I'm the farm. 5, 16, 17, 18. Submit. And now I should be in the fifth slot. And then I'll delete and start again. So what I was going to say is this is where the computer should be doing the thinking for you. You shouldn't be forced to iterate through all these different slots in order to figure out where the best slot is for you. Computers can easily do the simulation hundreds of thousands of times and come up with that number. So anytime you find yourself doing iterations and practicing to become better, that's an indication that the tool you're using is deficient. And so what I'm saying is RoboDraft is deficient in that respect. So I believe they're all deficient in that respect right now, and nobody has that capability. But that would be the next level uh, to be an awesome tool. So in this case, though, with the fifth pick, if there's not a bug, yes, okay. So now I'm at the fifth pick, and it's telling me I have a shot at McCaffrey, so it's sort of thought on its feet. And then, of course, it maps out the whole draft for me. So what I was wondering, though, is to see if maybe at the fifth pick it still thought Smith-Schuster was good. So that would be a situation like the one I just described, where you would say, all right, well, Schuster is available late in the draft. I have the fifth pick, and I can trade, if that's the power slot, if I'm at the fifth pick and it's telling me to pick up the 17th, the 17 ADP here, like Schuster was, then that's an indication that the power slot is higher up in the draft, that the power slot is out here at 16. So by dropping yourself in at different points in the draft, you can figure out what the power slot is. And you shouldn't have to do that iteration yourself, but for the time being, you do. Um, in any event, so that's what the power slot is. And you usually can find somebody who will trade you their higher up, 17th or 18th draft slot for your fifth draft slot, because everybody always thinks the lower draft slots, the closer to the number one draft slot you get, the better. It's not true. It's not true. The numbers don't bear that out. So There are a lot of, this tool also has, a lot of the basic stuff, which I won't go over, which is just, like the quick pick, and you can, of course, go through the list of all the players in case they're not on the quick pick. You can back things out and delete the last pick. You can save the results to RoboCoach, and then that's useful because during the season now you have your whole league entered in after your draft, and then RoboCoach will add value by telling you who to start, who to trade for, who to pick up off the waiver wire. But I'll do a review of RoboCoach some other day. It's beyond the scope of what I'm looking at here. So this has been Dr. RoboCoach with a review of RoboDraft, which is roughly equivalent to the trade assistant at Fantasy Pros. Please like and subscribe, and I'll include a link in the description to the article that inspired this review. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck in your 2019 fantasy football draft.